For our next technique, we're going to use a technique called Sgraffito, which is the same technique that the ancient Greeks used to make their designs on their vessels. And what the technique of Sgraffito does is it creates a field of background color. So I'm going to use this cinnamon underglaze for my color. And then I'm going to carve through the underglaze to reveal the white color of the clay. So the first step that you need to do is make sure that your pot or sculpture or whatever surface you're working on is leather hard. So it needs to be hard enough that you can apply underglaze, but not so hard that you can't carve it later. So my clay is leather hard, and I have my underglaze, and I'm just going to paint a whole field of color. Now you're still going to need to do 3 coats of the underglaze, just like you always do. This may take a little while for this first coat to dry because my piece is leather hard, and the wetter your clay is, the longer those coats take to dry. So I'm going to stop here with the video, and when this dries, I'll apply 2 more coats. Okay, so I've applied 3 coats of underglaze over my entire piece, and now I'm ready to carve my design. So I want to make sure that I let that underglaze dry, but I don't want to let the clay dry out completely, or it will be difficult to carve. You can use a variety of carving tools. I like a needle tool. I have some tools that have little teeny tiny loops on them. Those work well also. And so then you're just going to carve your design. And you can see that you reveal the white of the clay. And so this tool is making kind of a thicker line. If you wanted a thinner line, you could use a needle tool. Obviously, there's not as much contrast there, but you can make that line stand out later after it's fired. If that's something you want. Okay, now if you see any little kind of crusties or boogers, just leave them for now. When the clay is bone dry, you can kind of brush those away, but you don't want to do it now because it'll just sort of smear your surface. So this is ready to go into the kiln and be fired. After it's fired, I'll put on a coat of clear glaze, or I can show you a way that you can combine the first technique we saw, Mishima, with this technique of Sgraffito. Okay, class, you can see that I pulled my test tile for Sgraffito out of the kiln. It's been fired, bisque fired, and now I'm ready to apply some clear glaze on top if I like it just the way it is, or I can show you how to do a combination of Sgraffito with the other technique we did, Mishima. So you can see the white really shows up well where I carved thicker lines. It's not quite as contrasting with the thinner lines of just a needle tool line, but it still shows up pretty well, and as I said, this could be considered finished for a Sgraffito effect. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my black underglaze and I'm going to do Mishima as well. So what I'm going to do is just get some of this black underglaze and I'm going to brush over it here, and I don't have to be careful at all. Because remember, with Mishima, you wipe away the excess. And since that red is fired on, I can just wipe away and get a nice, really clean black line here. And I want to keep wiping until I really get all of that black off the surface, because that will show up. Okay, once this is all wiped away, I'm ready to go ahead and apply a clear glaze on top. And we'll fire it again and it'll be done.